How had you heard about the Marine Corps as opposed to the Army or the Navy?
Well, I wanted to be a paratrooper, and then I thought I'd go into the Army and be a paratrooper. Then I found out that the Marines had paratroopers, so I joined the Marine Corps instead, and I found me a home.
Yeah. So you leave on that train. Your mom tells you, don't be a coward, don't get any tattoos, don't be a drunkard, and come home to us. These are good, basic, fundamental rules for a lot of people, I think, to follow. And you head off on that train to boot camp, which is right here in San Diego, California.
Yes, So I got through boot camp okay, but my big problem, when they lined us up, we fitted out with shoes and clothing and everything. When it came to the shoes right there, they measured me, and they said, "Son, you can't join the Marine Corps because your feet are too small." And I thought, well, gosh, he's not going to send me home, is he, and everything. I wore a size 5.5 shoe, and he said, "We just don't make shoes that small." And so I had an old pair of shoes that had worn out, should have been thrown away. And I play a lot of poker. I knew how to play poker before I knew my ABCs. Well, anyway, I carried a deck of cards around all the time. So when I went to Marine Corps, I had to use the whole deck, putting about 3 into my shoes that had holes in them, my civilian shoes that had holes in them. And they finally, one night, I'd always take the top bunk in wherever I went, what barracks I was in, So I put my shoes on the deck under the bunk. The next morning I woke up, and looked like somebody had taken a car tire and cut out soles for me. The thing was about that thick, So I had a pair of shoes that I could march in anyway. And then when I had to cut down my have dungarees cut down, because it's too big and so forth. And I had a lot of trouble because I was so small. And at one time I was small enough that Ralph Hall, my captain, or my platoon leader, he was the first lieutenant at that time, and Aunt Ferris picked me as the runner. And so one night we were sitting around a campfire, and I said, "Why did y'all pick me as a runner?" And they said, "Well, you were so small, so you made a small target, and you were so fast afoot that you could outrun any Jap in the world." So that was the reason I was made a company runner.
So you were saying that your mom, and it's in the book too, it's a great story about your mom bringing you something to boot camp, visiting you and bringing you something to boot camp.
Oh, yeah. Well, it wasn't exactly the boot camp. It was when I came back from overseas and I found out that I was going to be in a demolition man in the assault squad. And the assault squad was composed of 5 men with specials, and I was going to be a demolition man. I was supposed to carry so many pounds of demolition on my back, and on front I would carry my regular pack, and so forth. And so I couldn't handle a rifle. So at first I said, "Well, we'll try to get you a pistol," because I couldn't handle a rifle with all that weight and so forth. And he said, "We're going to get you a pistol." I waited around a week for a pistol, and finally he came out and said, "The Marine Corps doesn't have any pistols, any left." And so I was desperate. So I called my mom. I said, "Mom, find me a pistol." I'd like to have a Colt, 1911 Colt. And my mom went out and looked all over town. Well, I looked all over San Diego here for a pistol myself, and there just wasn't one to be had, you know. And so I called my mom and told her what I needed, and I sent her the money. I sent her $75 that I'd won in a poker game. And I sent that to her, and she went around all over town looking for a pistol. Couldn't find one until she came to a trailer house down close to the railroad tracks with a guy that had a gun shop there. So she went out to the house trailer and knocked on the door, and Mr. Armstrong came out and said, "What do you need, ma'am?" She said, "I need a pistol." "What kind of pistol do you need?" She said, she took out the piece of paper that I'd written it on, a Colt 45, 1911. And he said, "I just happen to have one of those." And she said, "How much is it?" And he said, $200. And she said, "Oh, I can't afford that." He said, "Well, that's all I got. Why do you need such a big pistol?" She said, "Well, my son is in the Marine Corps, and he needs a pistol." And so he said, "Well, this is the only one I have, but $200. And so she backed it out of the door and went down the road. Mr. Armstrong came down and tapped her. He said, "You say your son was in the Marine Corps and needs a pistol?" She said, "Surely they can give him a pistol there." She said, "No, they don't have any." And she said, "Well, come on back. We'll work up a deal." So she walked out with that pistol cleaned of cosmoline, and he had his $75, and she needed to get there as soon as she could, you know. So she went down to the bus station, got on a bus with a paper grocery bag in it with extra clothes, you know, and got on the bus, and 36 hours later, she got to San Diego. Now, she crisscrossed across. In those days, you know, military guys had priority, and she'd be in one place, they would bump her off, let a guy come in, take her place, and she crisscrossed New Mexico and Arizona for 36 hours. Well, we were loading up to go overseas, and Cobber Darts and I were up on the truck with a bunch of sea bags, and Fisher, my sergeant at that time, was sitting in the cab with the driver and everything. So we went to the gate over here at Camp Pendleton, and the gate guard said, "Is there any Marine up there named Harvey, Fred Harvey?" And Cobber woke me up. I was asleep, woke me up and said, "Hey, they're calling for your names." So I looked over, and I saw my mom look up at me. And I slid off that thing real fast. I came off real fast. Well, after a while, Fisher said, "Harvey, we gotta go. I want to let your mom sit in the seat, and I'll get up there with y'all." And so we drove downtown and was looking for a place for her to stay. We couldn't find a place anywhere. I mean, we tried every hotel and so forth. So finally, this is around 12 o'clock at night, and so I went to a policeman. I said, "Sir, can you tell me where we might find a place for my mom to stay, a hotel or a motel or something, you know?" And he said, "Well, I just don't know of any place," and so forth. I'll tell you what, I'll call my wife. If your mother will stay with her, I'll call her and we'll go out there. And so the wife said, yes, bring her out. So he called the office, and the police car came out and drove him to the house. And his wife welcomed us with open arms, you know. And she stayed there 3 different nights, and then I was able to, Fisher would let me off quite a bit of the time, those 3 days that she was here. And then he finally had to put her on the bus, and he wrote a note making it a priority she wouldn't be bumped and anything when she got home. Well, that was the story of how I got my pistol.